Okay, I guess it's 12 p.m. here on the East Coast, so we can get started. I know you know the note well. We have to, if there's any IPR on any of these things, you're obligated by participating to disclose it. Also, there's a plethora of best current practices on IETF behavior here, and hopefully everybody will adhere to these. I don't think we've had much problems in the in this working group, but in others I've been in, things can get a bit heated at times. So I want everybody to remember this, including myself. Yeah, I think I talked about that on the previous slide. And here's just boilerplate in case you want to go to the chat room. I got the chat room up. I see Ying Zhen is in there. Okay, here is the agenda. First of all, we're going to go over the liaison and the IEEE 802 liaison a little bit, and what Russ is working on the response to that. I believe you are our liaison, right, Russ, for the IETF to the IEEE?
That's correct.
Yes, yes. After that, we'll have Paul talk about the draft using the multi-frame LLDP to support the discovery requirements. And then Randy's done some recent work to address comments on the L3DL draft, and he's going to do that. And this one, like I said, it was a last minute thing that Kara realized he had I don't know if he'll be available, so he might put them up quickly, his slides, and I can, or Randy if he wants, or I can talk to the differences, or if he is on in time. He thought he might be able to get on remotely in time, then we'll let Kara do it, and then we'll have the discussion and next steps. I think this is really the last thing is the key thing. Okay, I guess we have the liaison up here. Do you have should we? I don't know if we need to go through this again. We put it up at the last one. How would you like to do this, Russ? Do you want to just go to your slides?
Well, I didn't make any slides because I didn't think that was needed, but I will put.
Okay. Well, this is just the header, so let's go to the bulk of it.
So
here's
AC, if I may interrupt on the agenda, I just wanted to say something on the agenda.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So as the LSVR AD, I'm expecting that we'll have really a technical discussion on the LLDP proposal. I believe that was posted. I hope people have had a chance to go through it, and also the update. So we are looking for a technical discussion here. Everybody should feel free to provide feedback, suggestions, how we can move forward. So that's what we are looking for. And the actual, for our colleagues who are not so familiar maybe with the IETF process, the rest of the discussion or the decision making and the consensus calls and all those happen over the LSVR working group mailing list. So I don't know, ACG, if you want to add anything, but just wanted to set up the context here.
No, I have to admit, over the last few years, I've been relying on my co-chairs in the working groups for the procedural matters, but I agree with everything you said. G, do you have anything?
No, as I agree with what Kaden just said. Let's have technical discussion on this meeting and see how we can move forward.
Okay, so
I'm gonna.
you've already stepped through the bulk of the liaison statement. I just want to point out that basically what they're saying is while the L3DL work was put on the back burner for a while, they continued to do work on LLDP. They produced LLDP version 2. It's gotten widely deployed, and that they would prefer a solution that is backward compatible to it. That is the topic of this virtual interim in part, and so I'm hoping that the technical discussion here will tell us how to respond to this. But I would love for anyone who's on this call who participates in 802.1 would like to highlight any of the things other than what I just said. I'd love to hear them come to the mic and provide those highlights. Not seeing anyone getting the mic line. All right, I see that several key people are here, but if you think that summary nails it down, then I'm all right. Paul?
Wait, which Paul?
Oh, you're both Paul.
Yeah. We'll let Paul B go, because I think I was just going to comment that he had his presentation, I think, was along the lines of addressing what you were just pointing out. So I'll just drop.
Okay, Paul?
I think we can go to. Do you want to do anything other than just go to your slides, Paul?
Paul, if you're talking, you're muted.
Maybe having a little technical difficulty, it sounds like.
If it's the first time you're using Meet Echo,
Medica, okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
finding
that's
the buttons is always
It-
fun when
it's-
you use a new tool.
after about 5 years, it becomes intuitive. Do you see the unmute there down, Paul, in the at the bottom of the screen on the left-hand side of the what would be a dock on a Mac? There's a little microphone, and you need to unmute down there.
I think it may be a browser permission thing as well. It could be.
Oh, okay.
It can be, yes.
So you, yeah. Paul B, I think you might need to exit and then log in again and give an access to that.
How many engineers does it take to do a call?
More.
Maybe we should go to Randy's slides. I don't know. And Paul, you can restart Meet Echo. You have to give the browser position, unless you can. Actually, but this, your present, oh, he did leave.
He did leave, yeah.
Good. Well, let's just wait, because this really, his presentation really fits right now.
Okay, I'm going to drop off. I see he's back.
Let's see, Paul, are you in the chat? How's it coming?
I know one thing that confused me about Meet Echo is usually when you see grayed out icons, it means they're not available to you, but actually it is here. It's just you have to ungray it. So that was confusing. Is there a link to his slides on the agenda or anywhere?
Why don't you, G, can you bring up Paul Baturov's slides?
Yeah, I just send a link to the meeting materials to the chat window. But Paul, can you hear us?
It's posted that he's trying to talk, but it's not coming through. So his audio sounds like it's not linked up.
Okay, he can hear us, but he cannot talk. Maybe that is some problem with the browser.
Which I just know I saw the link you have to the meeting materials, but the slides I'm trying to see which ones are Paul's. I don't see those in the list actually.
They're there.
Which ones are they? Are they the second set? LLDP?
Yes, that's
LSVR?
correct.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. Paul, do you want me? Let me see. I'll just he is able to text with me. I could try to proxy for him. It's not the best thing, but I'll do my best.
You know, I'm somewhat familiar with what you're doing because I have a draft in IDR.
Right.
So you could go ahead. I think you could go ahead as long as you understand. Do you understand TLVs?
I mean, I absolutely understand the material. I worked with Paul on some of these. So, what I'm unclear about Meet Echo is how to share a screen or share those slides. Is there a button
Can you,
for that?
G, can you bring them up?
We can share the slides. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me try to share.
Paul should be perfectly competent to proxy for Paul. Whereas if I have to proxy for Kayer, I'm just not going to be able to talk that fast.
You don't have a high enough APS, acronyms per second?
In the IETF, it's known as EKRs, EKRs, after a very fast talker.
Yeah. Normally I listen to presentations at double speed. I can only listen to Kayer at like 1.25 or 1.5.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Paul B, if you get on and you can hear, and you just feel free to interrupt me or take over. I feel like we should just make some progress here. So, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is our standard, IEEE disclaimer. These are our views, not the IEEE's. So you can go to the next slide. So I think this is just some history recap, just in the effort of being not spending too much time on this because as Russ mentioned, already gave the history, but there was been quite a few interchanges early on between IEEE and LSVR. It motivated the IEEE to create, as you mentioned, a second version of LLDP, which we did. And we were able to complete that pretty quickly, actually. I provided several updates to LSVR during that development, just alluding them of progress. We had an early draft on TLVs that we let expire because there wasn't, at that point there hadn't been a lot of interest in pushing that forward. But we demonstrated how we could have done the TLVs. That draft has been updated, I think, by Paul as well recently. So again, it's in interest of time, we can kind of move forward from this slide. So I think this super high, I think most people understand LLDP, but just to point out, it really is a simple protocol. It's just a database exchange protocol. So you update your local database, and when things change in there, you share it to your neighbor, and then you periodically share the database. And so, yeah, anytime you get audio, Paul, just jump in. So anyway, it's just kind of in most instances, a one-way protocol. So the original version 1 of it was, you only shared a single PDU, so that made it even simpler. But as actually the main requirement that LSVR gave us, and there were other people that needed this as well, was to allow the exchange of larger databases than can fit in a single packet. So we enhanced LLDP to send multiple frames. But the general philosophy is the same. The information flow is you just sharing the state of your database. And things can trigger state changes in there, and then that can cause the database to be exchanged a little bit more rapidly. But in general, once things are in a steady state, it's just a periodic exchange of the database. And of course, what happens is when you share your database with your neighbor, it gets stored in like a MIB or management, and so that can be extracted by some management entity. And when those changes occur, there's a notification that would trigger you to go look at it, or you can pull it. However, bottom line, we think it's a relatively simple protocol, and as we all know, it's very widely deployed. So go ahead to the next slide. So applying this to LSVR's discovery and configuration, the discovery aspect of it can be, again, achieved by running LLDP at each of the LSVR logical link endpoints. That could be enabled by using a nearest router group address. So LLDP, I think didn't talk about that, but again, I think most people know how it works. You have a destination address. We usually use a multicast address that is linked local or doesn't get forwarded through switches, but you can actually use different addresses for destination, including a unicast address. And there's some consideration here for using something like a nearest router group address, where it would forward through layer 2 switches and hit the router interfaces, the next closest router interface. So this logical endpoint identifier in LSVR and LLEI could be encoded in the LLDP as its identifier. There's a unique identifier for each LLDP agent. We call it the chassis ID and port ID, but you can use different things to generate those chassis IDs and ports. And so the LLEI could be created from that combination. And then the discovery of the layer 3 or 2.5 capsulations that are used would be achieved by putting in a set of organizationally specific TLVs into the LLDP database. So the idea would be that we define a whole bunch of LSVR TLVs that would be used to exchange the information that L3DL is exchanging now, and we could just advertise those encapsulations or discover them using the protocol. And then typically there's some kind of a quote application that's above the LLDP layer that's registered for kind of receiving their interested set of database objects. And so some LSVR type application would register for that and obtain information that is exchanged that allow you to discover those encapsulations and information about BGP, SPF. So the layer 3 liveness could be enabled using organizational specific TLVs as well. I think that depends a little on the timeliness of your liveness, but you can certainly discover and understand the presence of the layer 3 entities there using those TLVs. And we do have other protocols in layer 2 that could be used for layer 2 liveness. You could both again use LLDP's time to live. So each database has a certain lifetime and needs to be refreshed within that lifetime. So that would prove some level of liveness. But we also have other protocols like connectivity fault management that are specifically designed to maintain continuity checks and other detect link failures at the layer 2. And of course, there's other layer 3 protocols as well for layer 3 liveness. So, and there is demonstration layer 3 can communicate parameters for UGP. As AC mentioned, he has a draft that he's been working on that is using LLDP for TLVs for BGP. And then, then there's the question of securing LLDP, and that can be done using also layer 2 we have MACsec, and there's investigations of other approaches that are possible as well. But the default thing for IEEE is to use MACsec. Next slide.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah,
How does it handle incremental updates again? I forgot that.
So so you have a local copy of your quote database that you're sharing out, and so when you update an object in your local database, that triggers LLDP to send an update immediately. There's kind of a fast retransmit thing that happens, or a fast transmission that happens right away. So it's just the notification that the local entity knows it updated its database, so it'll go and send out a new fresh copy of it.
So it'll be the whole thing though, right? Not just what changed.
That's correct. The whole database usually gets updated. Although this is where we need Paul B to refresh me on exactly the multi-frame update. I'm not sure. I believe we tend to refresh the whole database, but there may be a scenario in the multi-frame where you only need to, send the updated objects. But I don't think that's true, because the absence of objects is also an indicator that, the database has changed as well. So I believe typically we just update the whole database. Yeah, so Paul's typing in the chat. He's going to correct me. He says not exactly. LLDP only updates if there are changes. Yeah. But I think the point is the entire database gets updated. This was just an example of what the TLV itself looks like for, I know that there's OUI the IETF would be using for their organizationally specific TLVs. They can define their own. It would be up to IETF to manage the subtype number range. So each organization uses their OUI to update that. Okay, yeah. So Paul had another comment that only select PDUs that have changed are updated. Right. So you keep so in other words, you don't have to dump the whole database, but you do maintain a fresh state of the database with a multi-frame instance. When you had one frame, it was pretty simple. Obviously, you just sent the whole frame. And we have a digest PDU that will tell you what PDUs of the overall database have been changed. So you only need to update those. So that's the point of the digest. That's how we solve the multi-frame and the ability to exchange more information was by adding a digest TLV that describes the other TLVs. Okay, so as I mentioned, the IETF is in the process of defining their own TLVs. So obviously, you just have to manage your own subtypes for here, and then you can define the remainder of the TLV as needed. Okay, one more slide, and then I think we'll let Paul describe these. So there's sort of a summary that yeah, it's a pretty mature protocol, widely used everywhere, probably already running in the data center. And we enhanced it to support larger sizes, and that, again, specifically for LSVR requirements. It's also has a updated management Yang model that's been published as well. We believe it's fully capable of addressing the discovery and configuration requirements for LSVR. There is, reasonable rapid 2 liveness that could be supported using other 802 protocols. Again, these were the history of contributions that you could see over the years between IETF and IEEE, keeping things abreast on that. It's sort of the 802 suggestion to use LLDP rather than defining a whole new layer 2 protocol for those purposes. So, Paul, if there's anything else you want to type in the chat box, I can try to talk to it, or if anybody else wants to come in and augment what I did there, how I hashed up his presentation, please feel free.
We got a couple people in the queue. First, Ketan, and then.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead, Ket.
Yeah. Hi. So I had a question about that liveness. Which I believe it was slide 5 that said, or 4, that said that LLDP can use its own timer as well for liveness. My question was how fast, like what's the, I think it was 5, if I'm not wrong, maybe. What are the intervals what are the minimum intervals that LLDP can use?
Yeah, so
I think it's slide 5. I think slide 5.
Slide 5. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so there is a managed object in LLDP, which is the retransmission interval. It defaults to 30 seconds, but I think you can crank it down to to 1 second. Right, correct. So you could send out things on the order of 1 second. And so for the multi-frame, again, you only have to send things that are changed, or so the manifest would just be one PDU. I think that would be sent. We don't have to send the whole database every second, but you could, if you wanted to use that as a liveness approach, you could crank down its advertisements on the order of 1 second. I think we also have the recommendation, though, that there's other protocols that are more specifically designed for continuity checks, something like CFM.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Paul points out that you could use a 10-second retransmission timer, and that would be fairly equivalent to what L3DL is doing now. Yep. Who's next, Randy? I don't see the queue, actually. I'm not sure where to look for that.
So I forget what you call it, digest or manifest, but you're using that to try to get reliable transport. How is retransmission, or how do you handle how do you use that to get the reliable transport?
Paul, do you have a response for that? We don't, so like it's in that sense, being a one-way protocol. Yeah, so that's right. What happens, you send the digest, and then, the receivers actually request the PDUs that they're missing or need. And so if they're not getting them, then they can, repeat that request. So it's kind of a receiver-based reliability, I guess.
Thank you.
AC?
I guess what we'll go to Randy's presentation, and they'll probably, the open discussion is where we'll talk more, I guess, about this, I would think.
Can we go to Kayers first, please?
Kayer is not on, and he is he had a conflict. So it would be better if we didn't go to his first. I don't know if he's going to make it. I guess I would, but he said he might be available.
I'm assuming you guys are also seeing the chat, or Paul has been typing some.
Yes,
comments
yes, we
in there.
have.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay, I just want to point out and make sure it was on. People were seeing that, so he keeps pointing out that the multi-frame LLDP, the transmission rate is kind of in some ways controlled by the receiver. So.
Mhm. So Randy, it'd be better if you went next because Kayer, to give him the best chance of getting on. Now, he is on. He
Yes,
just
I
joined.
am. Thank you.
Would you, Randy, would you rather have him go first? Oh, Randy had to leave and come back.
So shall we change to KU slides first?
I don't know. Randy's not talking, so yeah. You arrived just in the nick of time, Kayer.
So KU, do you want to present before Randy?
Yeah, I can present. No problem.
Okay, so let's go to the difference comparison first. I will hand you the control. Okay.
Actually, it will be better if you control it for me.
Okay, good.
Super.
Please go ahead.
Next slide, please. I am going to talk about the differences between L3DL as well as the LLDP. Now, please mind you, this differences has been done based on LLDP version 1 and version 2. We haven't seen all the latest version of the document for LLDP. So this is considering what is out there. Yeah. Now, when you look at L3DL, the basic fundamental PDU differences looks like something like this at a high level. On Ethernet, L3DL tries to build stateful transport, and when it does that, bunch of things are made available with it. That stateful transport is akin to something like TCP-ish at the layer 2-ish, and it allows you to basically eliminate things like flooding. You don't have to resend data every so often. Uh, Furthermore, if the session goes down and comes up, it's an incremental restart. You don't have to resend everything to begin with. Most of the data center networks that we have now seen are point to point. And so some of this sort of emulates peer to peer sort of peering and allows you to do a fast session restart, if you will. And in doing so, when you have fabrics like EVPN deployed, one of the problems that flooding imposes is when a MAC move happens from one point to another point, EVPN learns the MAC, but it's very hard to take the existing MAC out in a way to say that the MAC move has actually happened. And you have to then rely on the forwarding aspects to get some of these functionalities resolved. Well, if you do the stateful transport here, and as part of that, you do announcement and withdraws correctly, then that problem goes away and it simplifies the fabrics tremendously. And this is the new age of data centers with containers, and it just helps. Next slide, please. The other differences that are being looked at is that, hey, as you are trying to do routing to loopbacks and interfaces behind the endpoint very well, because it has the ability to carry those addresses. Massive PDU scaling. So if you want to deploy lots and lots of overlay addresses, that should not be a problem. Inherent built-in security and the tunable liveness, which means that the fast session deactivate becomes really, really fast, and you sort of get the convergence aspects improved, if you will, in some of these scenarios. So that's all I have. I will take questions at this point. Any questions? Does that make sense?
One thing, I guess both of them, there's incremental updates, right? Would you
Yes.
describe that?
Yes.
We just talked about that for LLDP, how the incremental updates work. How do the incremental, you can talk about the incremental updates in L3DL?
Yes. The incremental updates sort of go out because of the fact that the session is somewhat stateful. You can now not worry about flooding at all every so periodic intervals. Instead, you just announce it once at the start of the session, and then anytime an address change happens or you need to withdraw it, the incremental update goes out. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I'm just going to make an observation. That's the difference, kind of the stateful versus non-stateful between the two mechanisms.
It's stateful in the transport, but it's also stateful in the database. But I believe that what the Pauls are describing in the LLDP database is also stateful, but they're doing periodic refreshes also with L3DL because it's a reliable transport and restartable. You can bet your money on sending only when things change, a la BGP.
Yeah, so I think I want to reemphasize the fact that we don't send the entire database periodically, just the manifest if things change, or the manifest so you can identify things change, and then the receiver can request to get the updates at their rate. And so there is a liveness, the tunable liveness that's described here. That's the rate at which you continue to send periodic messages to demonstrate liveness. Is that using you just don't share the database side of things, but it's just strictly a connectivity. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So in some ways, that's analogous to the manifest being used as a maybe as a liveness indicator, or that we periodically transmit. Okay.
Yep.
When you mentioned the routing to loopback and interfaces behind endpoint, could you describe what you meant by that again? I didn't follow that.
So BGP, especially in IBGPs, the BGP session is not between the connected interfaces. It's between the loopbacks that are behind the interfaces. Okay, so the PDUs describing the availability of endpoints can specifically mark, hey, this is not the interface address, this is the loopback that's behind it. It can also describe other interfaces that are behind the connectivity points that are just the terms used in L3DL are underlay versus overlay.
Right, and then the termination point of the L3DL session then is the loopback interfaces themselves behind the
No,
endpoint?
no, the termination of the L3DL sessions are the directly connected or possibly through a switch interfaces. The information being exchanged can include routing to things behind those interfaces, such as loopbacks, which IBGP will need.
Right. Okay, understand. Yeah, I think the proposal in the draft that Paul has updated has that same information exchanged. Yeah.
I believe so.
Cool. Any other questions or comments? Then over to you, AC.
Okay, let's Randy's slides. I see G is bringing them up. Thanks.
You going to click them for me, G? Next. This is
Yes.
going to be short and simple. Okay, of course, the architectural issues, of course, there's the liaison work. MPLS, it's not in the charter, but not against the charter. It is poorly done in the document. Adrian Farrell is going to help. And he knows a little bit about MPLS. Microservices example that raised is not in scope eyebrows, but it's merely a use case. And I think we're all trying to address it. Next slide, please. So we had a really good sector review and exposed some issues, most of which were fixed. The remaining ones we're discussing are the MD5 or whatever, TCPAO or whatever it is, secrets for BGP are in the clear, and we're not sure how to solve this, working on it. The algorithm suites were not specified, and we're proposing probably to use and refer to those we can steal from RPKI, and that's for the security mechanism. And there's a question of the way the sector reviewer phrased it is, why is there an S box? But Russ, and can you please speak to this one, Russ? Is essentially saying, hey, what do you do for checksums for jumbo frames? And of course, this is a classic Ethernet problem we've had for decades. And I believe that Russ was attempting to address that in this piece.
Yeah, there is a SBox based checksum that is defined in the protocol, and any other checksum would work. The question is which one works well with jumbo frames. That's the one we need. I'm getting quite an echo from somewhere.
Probably through me. I was having trouble enabling and disabling the mic. So I just left it on. Apologies. I believe there is no next slide. But you can try it, G.
I believe that is the last page.
So I will sign off.
Okay, G, do you want to bring up what you provide for the open discussion, just to prompt it, the chair slides again? Can you share those again?
Yeah. Just want to check. Is there any comment or question on Randy's slides? If not, let's go to the open discussion. Yeah. Here are some topics we listed here to trigger the open discussion, but people can also talk about other technical questions or comments. We have 15 minutes. Please raise your hands. Okay.
Regarding the first bullet, that as I mentioned, there were a number of updated presentations that occurred in LSVR that I provided when we were developing LLDP v2, and they included some slides that specifically attempted to address that first bullet. And so I think, and then, so anyway, it was our impression that we met the requirements that of LSVR. And I don't know, since then, like you said, L3DL kind of went quiet for a while there, and I don't know if things changed. So I personally didn't track the changes that may have occurred since that time frame. But if we refer back to some of the earlier presentations, there was a table that was specifically attempting to address that first bullet.
Yeah, and next one is Ross.
So, hey, Paul, I don't remember where that table was. If you could dig that out and share it,
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll try to go back and find those and put a link in the chat.
But I do recall, yeah, I mean, it was like 3-4 years ago, that discussion. But
yeah, correct. Near the end of the presentations, I had just a little spreadsheet that was with check marks. That was what my interpretation of what the LSVR requirements were and how LLDP could meet them. So, but I can dig that out.
So my reading of the liaison statement basically says, if you guys could use LLDP for discovering your neighbors and then talk to them once you've discovered them at the layer 3 protocol, then your concerns would be addressed. I'd like clarity whether that is a correct statement.
In fact, LLDP version 1 could be used for that discovery.
I'm not sure that's true, Randy, given that you may have MPLS, IPv4, IPv6 addresses, and so on, plus the mandatory LLDP TLVs. It might just get to the limits of the Ethernet frame. But if you only had one of those addresses, it would probably work just fine.
No, I was talking about just use LLDP v1 for the hello, for the initial hello to the discovery of the neighbor and then continue on as current. But I don't think we want to go down this rat hole too far here now.
Okay, but at any rate, I would like to hear from the EDIT 2.1 folks whether my summary is accurate or not.
So I've entered the queue, but not, before you asked the question, but actually I wanted to answer the question on the slide that I think LLDP can meet the requirements of LSVR, and this has been demonstrated by the contributions. And as a reminder, the 802.1 working group has published the standard for the LSVR working group, and this has been announced. Everybody was welcome to contribute. So if you go to, I don't need to open it now, but Paul Bottorff's presentation has a bullet list that matches the requirements list in the L3DL draft to also demonstrate that it can meet the needs, and maybe that's a more up-to-date list to compare than the table in the previous presentation.
If there's no further feedback on the first bullet, maybe we can move to the second one. AC, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think for if you're just looking at information exchange alone, multi-frame LLDP could do the same thing, and just in terms of information exchange. Now, let's, and I'll go to number 2. And of course, all these I'm speaking as working group member, in case it's not clear. I think there is value to L3DL beyond LSVR, and I think just the stateful and all the things Kay are talked about. I think it is a valuable. We've done a lot of good work here. We have the 2 types of security in it, and I think it would be a shame to lose that, and even if there were more than one way to do it. Yeah. I'm sure others have to. I think we moved to number 3.
May I reflect to your point, AC, that I think the liaison statement also points out that for the benefit of the industry, it is better to have one solution to one problem. And LLDP is widely deployed. And if a new protocol is developed, new layer 2 protocol is developed for the very same purpose, that causes implementation burden and issues in the industry.
Okay, I read that in there. I'm just saying I think this can be used beyond LSVR for other discovery and liveliness and other things. I'll let others give their opinions.
I entered the queue. My question was about the multicast address. What was what about multicast address question mark? I didn't understand what the bullet was.
This is Russ. What I think that's about is that the current draft uses the multicast address assigned to switches, and I think that's intended for an 802.1 purpose, and we may need our own for that, L3DL speakers or something.
Okay, thanks. I just wasn't sure if that was related to addressing, that we use in LLDP or not. So we could certainly define a new multicast as needed to perform the reach that's desired for the protocol.
Well, we want to make sure that what's used here and what's used in .1 are, if we use the same one, that they're reaching we're not interfering with each other.
Right, they're reaching the same place.
Yeah, for the second bullet, I didn't notice whether people talk about the ether type, whether we need to consider use of experimental ether type for this. If we agree L3DL has value to be published at an experimental RFC. Any comments on that one?
Yeah, if we're going to use in the long run LLDP, we can use their ether type. We don't need to reserve one, because all the layer 3 stuff, we just need to use the normal port mechanisms.
And certainly 802 has a means for, using experimental ether types or using an OUI, vendor specific in terms of developing a protocol and getting field test trials for it. I don't know if L3DL had already taken advantage of that architecture or not, but that's certainly something that could be done, to get some field trial capability of it without requiring a dedicated ether type immediately.
I don't think we even need one if we go the LLDP route.
That's correct. Yeah, you wouldn't need one if you're using LLDP. It's already there. Yeah.
I guess other people just agree with what's already been said by somebody else, because I expect, is there anybody else have anything? I see Janos.
Yes, I wanted to leave it for the last minutes, and I think it is useful to discuss at this interim this aspect as well. I don't know if I should bring up parts of the L3DL draft and the charter, but I think it's pretty clear that the current draft includes the specification of layer 2 protocols. And I haven't found this in the charter. So the charter talks about layer 3. So I'm not sure if it is appropriate this way.
Well, it is layer 3 discovery. I think that's I mean,
Okay,
whether or not, I mean, it is layer 3 discovery, even if it runs on layer 2. We're discovering layer 3 information. So
can I share my screen? It's sharing the draft. I don't know what you see. I could not choose. Okay, yes. And
Do you know how to pass the screen sharing to?
so
you?
just, I think you can see it now.
I did it, I
Okay.
think.
So it is the draft, and this is section 10. It says the Hello PDU is an Ethernet frame with such and such MAC addresses. This is a layer 2 protocol, not a layer 3 protocol. It's not an IP packet, not an IP address. And even in the section header, it is called layer 2 liveliness. So it is not a layer 3 protocol. And if I come to the charter, layer 2 is not mentioned, only layer 3. So specification of new layer 2 protocols is not included in the charter, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, we're not going to get excited about that, whether or not, because we are doing layer 3 discovery. I mean, if we have to go, if this were the only thing keeping us from that, we go through the IESG and update the charter. It's not, I mean, L3, the fact that it's using L2 frames for L3 discovery, since L3 discovery is in the charter, I'm not going to get excited about. I mean, about wordsmithing the charter. What I'm saying, it doesn't say in the charter that L2 can't be used for L3 discovery.
Glenn, we can't hear you for some reason if you're speaking.
Well, I was just waiting to be recognized.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So I guess I'd like to state at a high level that that we've had an excellent relationship between IEEE 802 and IETF over the years. and we have a joint collaboration meeting that Russ chairs with Dorothy on our side. And this is because of the relationship that we've had where IETF works on layer 3 and IEEE 802 works on layer 2. And this has kind of been sort of a gentleman's agreement. And when we identify, where there's overlap points, that's when we bring it up and we have a discussion. So I guess my point here is that I don't think this is something to brush over lightly. Oh, we can just ignore that we're going to trounce all over layer 2 because we need to. I think the point here is that I think the point has been raised. We have a liaison. We've indicated that our concerns and with the protocol. And I don't think, from my perspective, it's not appropriate to just brush us off with oh, that's an irrelevant point. So I just wanted to make that point. I think it's been an excellent meeting so far. We've had technical discussions, but I just wanted to raise my objection to the last comment by the chair. Thank you.
What I was saying is the fact that that's a more important one than the fact that the charter doesn't specifically say it's using an L2 protocol for L3 discovery, which was the initial comment. I didn't say that the roles of the respective standard or organizations are being brushed off. I don't want to get hung up on what is or isn't in, the wordsmithing of the charter, since L3 discovery is there. Randy, go ahead.
I thought Ketan was in front of me, and he certainly outranks me. Welcome to the 21st century. Everything runs over L2. So what I'm trying in my head, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing with either Paul, Janos, etc., is IP is defined to run over ether. So, and L3DL as it stands is creating another reliable layer 3 transport over a layer 2 transport. So I'm still unsure of the space, and I really don't want to step on anybody's toes. And as the Pauls will remember, back in 2019, I said, hey, I will gladly work on LLDP v2 with you for this application, et cetera. So I'm just trying to understand how it fits together, and I'm not intentionally trying to step on IEEE's toes.
Yeah, Ketan.
Okay. Thanks, G. So to the first question, what I heard is that it does meet quite a lot of the requirements, but there are probably some gaps or some things that are not there. It would be good if this discussion were to continue on the mailing list, and we could identify what are the things that could not be done with LLDP, for example. That would be a good technical data point to have. Regarding the Mac, I think those things were clarified. Coming to the alternate design, I thought I heard Russ say that perhaps some part of LLDP could be reused and then more could be built on top of it, and that probably is something as well. I don't know if that's an alternate design or what, but that's something to consider or look at perhaps, or at least discuss on the mailing list. And I think at this point we should continue the discussion on the mailing list. Yeah, Paul, my thing was I thought I heard something, but I don't as well know what the gaps are. So if there are any gaps, it would be good to identify. I mean, gaps with LLDP based approach for the discovery. There were the slides that Keyur shared where he brought up some differences, and that's what I was referring to. But let's, yeah, I think we can take that to the mailing list. So I don't have anything more to add, but to continue this discussion over the mailing list at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we established that experimental MAC address is not an alternative. Everybody agrees on that. But we should, yeah, discuss on the mailing list.
Yeah.
So perhaps G and AC, you guys could kick off the discussion on the mailing list on some of these points, and we can continue the discussion there.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul, you had a question. Maybe you can type in here about experimental ether type.
That was from G's slide. We wouldn't look at using an experimental ether type for L3DL. It doesn't make sense at all. Everybody seems to agree on that.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, Paul, if that was not clear, that's probably something to get discussion on in the mailer as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Keaton. And I think that for the next steps, I think according to the discussion today, I think we need some more discussion on the mailing list. And welcome to share your thoughts and for the comments to the list. And then maybe we need to consider how to reply to the liaison. Then if there's still needed, we may also consider to have a joint meeting in Madrid. And the last one is after all this happened, we can make the decision on this mechanism for LSVR discovery and liveness.
Can I add the point to Madrid that
yeah, please.
We mentioned earlier that the IEEE plenary is the following week, and the IEEE 802 has created a special registration, a one-day registration for IETF people. Like if one has an IETF registration, then it's possible to register for 1 day. And if you would like to stay over, I guess, for the following Monday, I think we can arrange the 802 agenda to have LLDP discussions and stuff like that, for example.
That's really generous of you. Thank you.
I guess we should email the details on the list. It's very recent. I just saw a few emails, and I was about to ask our organizers if we can advertise, but we should really start advertising.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the information. And AC, do you have something to say on this?
No, I think that's an excellent idea. Hopefully, we'll have a direction forward before the interim. But if we, I mean, before the having a joint meeting. But if we should know, if we don't have anything in the next couple weeks, we probably, and we'll start the discussion and see where that goes on the LSVR list. That seems like a good way forward.
Yeah. Import. Anyone have any further comments? Yeah, Paul, I think I saw your comments in the chat. I will put them into the meeting minutes and we'll share the minutes to the mailing list. Then we can start a discussion there. How about that?
That sounds good. We can talk about it. Who's going to do what on getting this discussion started? Just put the questions out there without any, or put some of this out there without any in a neutral manner.
Yeah, agree.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining the meeting.
This was very helpful. Thanks for arranging the interim.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.